Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Spurs Up Show, the best Gamecocks podcast on the internet. Today is Thursday, July the 30th, 2020. On today's show, we continue along with the position unit preview series. Today, I break down the Gamecocks' defensive tackles heading in the 2020 football season. We'll look back at 2019. We'll meet the defensive tackles. I'll talk about who has the most to prove, the best overall. Season will be successful if, give my overall grade for the unit, much, much more. Also, some news and notes to get into, your listener questions, and a fantastic conversation. Mike Uva of WACH FOX, one of the best local media guys here in Columbia, South Carolina. I'm really in the state of South Carolina, joins me to talk about the state of media, sports media, how he got to where he is today, Gamecocks football, what college football may look like this fall, much, much more. His story, a fantastic conversation, guys, so stay tuned for that. It's all brought to you by our friends over at SeatGeek. SeatGeek, the best ticket buying app by far, the only ticket buying app I use, and the only one I recommend. Go download the SeatGeek app, go to SeatGeek.com, use the promo code SPURSUP. You're going to save $20 off your first purchase. Guys, sports are returning. Fans will be in the seats soon. This is the new way to buy tickets. No more are you going to scalp. You're not going to interact with people. Listen, we're all on our phones already, right? We're going to be using apps. And SeatGeek is the app to use. They've got a great ticket rating system which rates the tickets for you based on the type of deal you're getting, guys. So not only, again, do you not have to worry about scalping, but you're going to know exactly where you're sitting, what you're paying. Am I getting a good deal? Am I getting ripped off? What's the view from the seats? All that information, you're going to have that before you click the buy button. It's going to give you that peace of mind. It's going to make the ticket buying process super simple, super easy. That way you can just buy your ticket. You can just focus on having a great time at your event. And you're going to save money in the process by using our promo code. So, again, that is promo code SPURSUP, SPRSUP, $20 off your first purchase. Go download the SeatGeek app or go to SeatGeek.com. Again, that's promo code SPURSUP, SPRSUP, to save $20 off your first purchase. Let's get it. The Spurs Up Show, as always. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Have a packed show. Happy Thursday to everyone. Hope everyone's having a fantastic day. You're staying safe, staying healthy, social distancing, wearing your masks, doing whatever you got to do to take care of yours. Like Marshawn Lynch says, get your money, get your chicken, take care of your mental, your whatever he says. Hopefully everybody is doing well on this Thursday. Have a packed show, lot to get to. Very, very excited. We're moving to the defensive side of the ball today. You guys know we've been doing the position unit preview series for the last few weeks or so. Finally getting to the defensive side of the football, and I'm very excited because there's a ton of talent on this Gamecocks defense, as I mentioned before in previous conversations with Phil Steele, with Brett Ciancia, with others. Ton of talent on this Gamecocks defense. I'm very, very excited to start with it today. Also, fantastic conversation on Mike Uva, like I said in the beginning. Ton of other stuff to get to as well. Before we do, just a couple of notes here before we dive into everything. As always, if you have not done so, click the pause button right now. Whether you're on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, whatever. Do me a favor, guys. We are approaching, I believe, 300 reviews on iTunes. We're approaching 300. I'm looking at it right now. Can I scroll any slower? We're at 281. We're 19 reviews from 300. I'd love to get that up to 300. If you guys could do me a favor, if you have not done so, click the pause button. Again, no matter what outlet you're on, click the pause button. Go leave a 5-star review. Go leave your thoughts, your feedback, your comments, your concerns. If there's things you like about the show, if there's things you don't like about the show, that's a great place to leave those. It helps me improve the show. It helps boost the podcast up as well. So maybe those that have not heard of the Spurs Up Show can find it. So again, if you guys would do me that solid, take 5 seconds out of your day. And again, if you want to write any feedback, completely up to you, but I really do appreciate it. Also, if you're listening and you're not subscribed, I don't know what you're doing. Be sure to click the subscribe button. That's going to give you the notifications when the podcasts drop. We're eventually going to move back to the daily shows that we're dropping every single day. So you definitely want to make sure you're subscribed at that point as well. You want to make sure you check into that, smash that subscribe button. And also on social media, on YouTube, all of our other outlets. If you're not subscribed or following or whatever, be sure to hammer that subscribe button. Again, thank you guys so much, those who have already done so. One other quick note I want to mention in case you're interested in this sort of thing, the Twitch South Carolina March Madness National Championship is tonight. Tonight, 8 o'clock tip-off. South Carolina, we're taking on the Washington Huskies for the whole damn thing, for the trophy, for the title. I'm very excited. Wrapping up the season. It's sort of sad, too, because this will be the last night that I'm streaming the 2K March Madness college basketball, if you will. Not saying it's the last time I'll ever do it, but for this season, we're wrapping it up. Would love to win the hardware. Would love to win the damn hardware. Tune in tonight, 8 o'clock on Twitch. I'll be throwing all those links up on social media. Going to be a really, really fun time. Also, one last thing before we get into the meat of the show, and that is, you guys may have seen a little bit of a teaser on social media. I am very, very excited. I'm elated. I'm ecstatic to announce a brand new piece of daily content rolling out to you guys. Daily content. Rowdy Rooster Radio. You might have seen it on social media, on Twitter, on Instagram. Rowdy Rooster Radio will be debuting Monday afternoon, August 3rd. That is this upcoming Monday. Monday, August 3rd. It will be a daily online radio show, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern. I'm really excited about this. This is something I've been wanting to do for a long time, and I think you guys probably already know that when you take a look at I did the Daily Crow series for a while on YouTube Live, and YouTube Live was a really good outlet, but I was just thinking to myself, I want to have people call in, and that's one thing I wanted to specify that I did not mention. This is a call-in radio show. There is a number specifically for the show. I can give that to you guys right now, but if you go to the website, and it's blogtalkradio.com, and again, I will be posting all of these links on social media the beginning of the day when we go live, so you're never going to not see them. But the official number to call into the radio show, I'm pretty sure this number will never change. If it ever pulls up, the number is going to be, and again, this is something where it's going to be a very interactive show, very laid back, very casual. I'm planning on having at least 1 to 2 guests every single day. They could be sports people. It could be off the wall. So I'm very excited. It's going to be a very laid-back, casual type conversation. Very excited. We're going to be talking, of course, a lot of Gamecocks because I am a Gamecock myself. I'm a South Carolina guy. But I'm excited, too. We're going to expand outside of that footprint, talk SEC, talk common interest topics in regards to sports. It's not going to be like a political show, obviously. I'm staying in my lane, sticking to what I know. Going to be a lot of sports stuff. Obviously, it's just going to be sports. I mean, like I said, it's not just going to be South Carolina. Again, most of it will be probably, but I'm excited to kind of expand out. I'll probably have guests from people around the SEC and have those type of conversations. So just going to be a lot of fun. Again, a daily radio show, something that I've wanted to do for a really, really long time, and I'm really excited to make it happen. The number that you guys will call into is 515-605-9342. So if you're listening and you want to write that down or whatever, again, you don't have to because when you go to the link to tune in the show, it's going to have the number there for you. It's going to tell you the exact number if you want to call in. And that's one of the parts I'm most excited about. This thing is going to be an interactive call-in show. I'm really, really excited to get fans in. You guys know I love the banter. I love the back and forth. I love the debate. So it's going to be a lot of that. Again, Rowdy Rooster Radio, debuting Monday, August 3rd, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern, a daily call-in show talking Gamecocks, SEC, and everything in between. I am very, very, very excited about this, guys. I'm so pumped up. Again, this is something I've always wanted to do, something I've been, thinking about doing for a while, and it just felt like, this is a great time. We're inching closer and closer and closer to college football season. There's a lot going on right now. And again, I'm excited for many, many reasons. I'm excited for the call-in aspect, to banter with you guys, to have guests on, to have just a different piece of content. Like I said, it'll be a little more casual, laid-back, fun conversation, and I'm really, really pumped for that. Not quite as buttoned up as the podcast. I think it'll just give me an opportunity to produce more content and sort of let loose and have a lot of fun with it. I'm very, very excited for it. So you guys, be sure to stay tuned to social media. Again, it's through blogtalkradio.com. I believe you can. Yeah, you can follow the show there. So if you want to follow the radio show, you can do it blogtalkradio.com/Rowdy Rooster Radio. You can do it through there. But again, I'm really excited. Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Also, just to support, be sure to go follow Rowdy Rooster Radio on social media, on Twitter at Rowdy Rooster Rad, I believe it is. Yep, I'm looking at it now, Rowdy Rooster Rad, because radio was too long. And then on Instagram, of course, at Rowdy Rooster Radio all together. So really excited, guys. Really, really excited. All right, let's dive into the show, the position unit preview series like I was talking about. We're moving to the defense. We're moving to the defensive side of the ball, which I think should be the strength of this Gamecocks team. And we're starting up front with the big uglies, the defensive tackles heading in this 2020 football season. Before we talk about the guys this year, let's look back at 2019. And again, I remember I posted a week or two ago, I posted defensive stats from last year. And, they were very average. And I know a lot of you, commented and reached out and said, well, those numbers are skewed. The defense was on the field the entire game, blah, 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 whatever. So I'm just going to present these numbers for what they are. I'm not trying to make a point necessarily by saying it, but these were the numbers. The Gamecocks defense allowing 158 rushing yards per game. It was good enough for 12th in the SEC and 66th nationally. Again, does the run defense fall solely on the defensive tackles? No. I mean, you have your ends that have to play their assignments. You have the linebackers, which we know that the linebackers have been a sore spot for the Gamecocks. But the defensive tackles are your first line of defense. They're up there. So, again, 158 rushing yards per game. The 2019 season, though, really all came down to Javon Kinlaw. I mean, it was the Javon Kinlaw show. During the season, he had 35 total tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 6 sacks as well. He really balled out. You look at a guy like Kobe Smith, had 28 total tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss. He had half a sack. Kingsley Enagbare had a really, really good year, 27 total tackles, 7 tackles for loss, and 3.5 sacks. Freshman Zacch Pickens, who actually played in every single game as a true freshman, had just 16 tackles, no tackles for loss, no sacks. But I think the great thing about Zacch Pickens, as I've mentioned many times, he was not put in a bad situation in the sense that he had to play immediately. So I expect him to fill in that role, and we're definitely going to talk about him more in just a second. Jabari Ellis, 7 total tackles. You had Rick Sandage, who had 6 total tackles, which really surprising that Rick's numbers were that low. And again, I'm going to mention that more in just a second. Keir Thomas, we know he battled the injury. So again, a little bit of a mixed bag for the D tackles, but without a doubt led by Javon Kinlaw. Javon Kinlaw was the one-man wrecking crew, and we saw that pay off in April in the NFL draft when he was the 14th overall pick to the San Francisco 49ers. Excuse me, guys. To the San Francisco 49ers, and I think he's going to ball in the NFL. I think there's no question he is going to eat with that San Francisco defensive front and that defense in general, so it should be a lot of fun. Let's meet the defensive tackles in 2020. Going down the list here, you got Zacch Pickens, Rick Sandage, Keir Thomas, Kingsley Enagbare, Alex Huntley, Tonka Hemingway, Devontae Davis, Jabari Ellis, MJ Webb, and Macias Scott, rounding out the defensive tackles. Now, one thing I do want to mention, with the defense, there are a lot of guys that can play multiple positions. So you might say to yourself, like a Kingsley Enagbare, well, he'll slide to the outside, he'll slide in. I'm putting him with the tackle. So when you hear a guy's name that can play multiple positions or whatever, I hear you. I get it. I'm just going to go ahead and throw them in a bucket, though, just so we can rate these guys and talk about these guys. But, yes, I know guys can play multiple positions. Let's dive into most approved, best overall. Season will be successful if overall grade. You guys know the drill at this point. Starting with the most approved. And there's certainly a number of guys you can go for. Because I think, listen, I'm very high on the talent on the Gamecocks defense overall as a whole. But, there are certainly some unknowns when you look at this South Carolina defensive front and the defensive tackles specifically. I think there are a lot of guys on this front that have something to prove, you will. Like all these guys really do. Who's going to fill in and step in for Javon Kinlaw? I mean, that's the big question coming into this season. How does your defensive front, how are the numbers going to get better when you lose a guy like Kinlaw, who's the 14th overall pick? How are you going to get better at that spot? So for me, the most approved, and the only way you're going to fill his shoes, the most approved for me, no question, is Zacch Pickens. Zacch Pickens has to be the guy this year that fills in and really comes into his own, if you will. A one-time 5-star prospect, 5-star recruit. Like I said, the numbers last year were pedestrian, 16 tackles. But the good news was, again, he was not asked to do a lot, which is a good thing. I mean, on the line of scrimmage, is where it is the toughest to be successful as a young guy. You're physically just getting, adjusted to the SEC game, to the SEC speed. It was great for him to be behind a guy like a Javon Kinlaw and learn from him and get in the weight room and develop and mature. I'm expecting big, big things out of Zacch Pickens. But again, I think he has the most to prove amongst this group. I think he has to be the guy this year. He has to go from sort of, highly regarded prospect who was a whatever freshman that learned behind Kinlaw. He has to be ready to step in and to be that dude. I mean, you take a look. He has the traits to do it. He has all the measurables. You look at his measurables, 6'3", 300, a guy who can move, who's very athletic. I know last year he was sort of, and that's what I was talking about, the physical side of things and the maturation and stuff like that. He was sort of fighting between, is he an in guy? Is he an interior guy? He was sort of in the middle in regards to size. Again, he's gotten himself up to 300 pounds of good weight. I'm very excited to see what Zacch Pickens does. But, yes, I think he has the most to prove. And I think he has the most to prove because he has the most potential of anyone in this group. He has the most potential of anyone in this group. I think he can be another Javon Kinlaw for you. I really think he has that type of ceiling. And he needs to play like it. Again, listen, it's just like when we had Brett Cianci on a couple weeks ago. There are certainly other factors that factor into your success and winning and having a great program outside of recruiting, right? But when you get a five-star guy, you need them to ball out like a five-star guy. Zacch Pickens is one of those guys. You know what I mean? All the hype is great. All the potential talk is great. Now it's time to do it, though. Again, he's going to be expected to be the guy. No question. There's no secret. There's no doubt. There's no denying it. There's no doubt. He is going to be expected to be the dude. And again, I think he has the most to prove on this defensive front because he has the most potential of anybody in this group, without a doubt. There are other good players. I'm not taking away from those guys. But if Zacch Pickens comes into his own, if he pans out, if he is the guy we expect him to be, I mean, there's no reason why he can't be just like a Javon Kinlaw and be the 14th overall pick in the first round. I think he has that type of ceiling. So for me, in this 2020 season, the guy that South Carolina needs to ball out, that needs to step up, and the guy that has the most to prove amongst these defensive tackles is Zacch Pickens in my mind. Best overall, and again, like I said before, I know this guy can play outside, play inside, but I would be a fool to not talk about the defensive tackles or to talk about the defensive tackles and not talk about Kingsley Enagbare. I mean, a guy that was phenomenal last year. I'm not sure that I even expected him to do what he did a year ago. A straight-up disruptor, an all-SEC caliber kind of guy. Again, you take a look at Enagbare's stats from a year ago, and I'm bringing them up here. 27 total tackles. He had 7 tackles for loss and 3.5 sacks. I mean, a guy that was just constantly in the backfield. I think Kingsley right now is your most polished guy. He's your best guy. He's your best option up there. I fully expect him to be starting opposite of Zacch Pickens. Either he or Keir Thomas, I think, will be one of the two guys starting. You take a look at Kingsley's measurables. Let's see here. 6'4", 275. So that's why he can play some outside as well, because at 275, a little bit lighter than some of the other guys for sure. I think he's probably the lightest defensive tackle just on paper amongst this group. But Kingsley Enagbare is an absolute force, a wrecking ball. Again, I don't know if Zacch Pickens alone can replace the production, the disruption that Javon Kinlaw brought. But if you combine Pickens, you combine Enagbare, you combine Keir Thomas, you combine Huntley, you combine Rick Sandage, I think they all as a collective unit, you combine Jabari Ellis, I think as a collective unit they certainly can. And Kingsley is one of these guys that, again, I think he's such an underrated player. I mean, listen, like I said, he wasn't really on my radar going into last year. I didn't think of him as an all-conference type of guy, and he proved me wrong. So I'm very excited for what Kingsley Enagbare is going to bring to the table. Again, 7 tackles for loss. He's an absolute disruptor. He's a playmaker. He's a playmaker for this Gamecocks defense, and he will be a major, major part of the defensive tackle success this year. That is why he is my best overall selection for this group. Let's move into season will be successful if. And listen, guys, I'm going to go ahead and spoil it. I'm not even going to delay it here. I already talked about him. To me, the season will be successful for the defensive tackle group. And there's a ton of talent within this group, like I mentioned. The season will be successful if Zacch Pickens emerges as an impact player. If Zacch Pickens comes into his own, listen, I feel very confident that, listen, I think a guy like Rick Sandage, he's got a lot to prove. But I feel good about him coming in his junior year. Keir Thomas, going to be like a fifth-year senior. He knows the game. He knows what to do. He knows what Muschamp wants. He's a solid player. Just talked about Kingsley. I think Alex Huntley's a solid freshman. Tonka Hemingway, a big-time freshman. Jabari Ellis, a guy, the JUCO, that I think will have a big impact. Talk to Phil Steele about him. He really likes his game. MJ Webb, Makia Scott provide good depth. Devontae Davis provides good depth. If Zacch Pickens can come into his own, like I said, fill in the shoes, emerge as that impact guy, and just simply put, be the five-star prospect South Carolina recruited him to be, it's going to be a good year for the defensive tackles. I think the defensive tackles are going to hold their own. Now, the reason that I did not put a statistical number on this group about the season will be successful if, because like I said, last year, 158 rushing yards per game allowed. That's got to get better. That has to get better. Has to. Year 5 of Will Muschamp's defense, you cannot be giving up. You cannot be ranking 12th in the SEC in rushing yards per game defense. You just can't. You can't. You're not going to win a lot of games that way. But I didn't put the statistics on them because, again, it's not all on them. You need your linebackers to play their assignments. You need your DNs to play their, stay home, play their assignments. It's much more than the D tackles. But I think if Zacch Pickens, if he emerges into that impact player that we all know he can be, I have no doubt those numbers are going to improve. I have absolutely no doubt that those numbers will improve. So I am very, very excited for Zacch Pickens. Again, I think this I already talked about. The ceiling is extremely high for him. And I think the season will be successful for this group if Zacch Pickens can be that guy. If he can be that guy, there is enough talent beyond that to where I think this group will be really, really, really good. I really do. I'll feel very good about it. So excited to see what Zacch Pickens does. Again, potential is a scary word because that's all it is potential. But I think Pickens can be the guy that pans out and emerges, like I said, as a big-time player for this Gamecocks defensive front. Let's go into overall grade. Again, I talked about these guys a ton. I think there's a ton of talent here. I'm going to give them a B-, and I know a lot of you are probably going to think that's a little bit low. The only reason I do is it's hard for me, and I want to look really quickly. I just had this pulled up. I want to see what did I give the defensive tackles going into last season. Okay, let's see. I gave him a B+, okay? I gave him a B+ going into last season. Even with the potential of Zacch Pickens, even with Kingsley Enagbare, even with all these other guys I mentioned, as good as they are, it's hard for me to give the exact same grade or even better when you lose a guy like Javon Kinlaw. I mean, it's, listen, that's a big unknown. Will South Carolina be able to replace him, replace his disruptiveness up front? Because, listen, my biggest, I'm not even going to say knock, but my biggest, criticism, I guess, on Javon Kinlaw, the only thing about Javon Kinlaw I would say in a critical way is that at times he disappeared. There will be a 2 to 3 game stretch where Javon Kinlaw, and listen, he was getting doubled and tripled. I get that. But there will be a 2-3 game stretch where he was just not making plays. But when he was on, Javon Kinlaw was unstoppable. I know we all remember him shoving that guy to the ground in the Alabama game. We all remember him tantalizing Jake Fromm, making his life a living hell. I hope I used the word tantalizing correctly. If I did not, please do not come after me. Either way, making Jake Fromm's life hell. Javon Kinlaw was great against the best competition. That was the big thing with him. When the lights were brightest, Javon Kinlaw was there making plays. So you lose a guy like that, and now again, like I said, who's going to step up and fill his role? Is it going to be Pickens himself? Is it going to be a mixture of 3, 4, 5 guys that are going to replace his disruptiveness? Who's going to be the guy? Are you going to be able to replace them? Is the group going to suffer losing Javon Kinlaw? That could happen. I mean, that's a question. But I like this group. I think there's a lot of potential in this group. Listen, if Zacch Pickens emerges, like I said earlier, as the dude, if he plays up to his 5-star ranking, I think this grade will be higher. I think the postseason grade of this will be higher. No question. No questions asked. but you got to do it. So, listen, I like the overall depth of this group. I like the talent on this group. You bring in some talented freshmen, too. Like I said, in Huntley, Hemingway, I really like those guys. Even Makia Scott is a big-time dude, 6'3", 306. He's a big guy. But if this is your starting lineup, Zacch Pickens and Keir Thomas backed up by Rick Sandage and Kingsley Enagbare, you could do, and that's just the Athlon depth chart. I think Kingsley's probably a starter. Either way, you could do much worse amongst your defensive tackles. So I'm giving them a B- right now, but I think your potential is probably an A grade. This group has the potential of an A. I think people are somewhat sleeping on not just the tackles, but the defensive line and probably the South Carolina defense as a whole. But I'm going to give them a B- right now. I think there are questions to be answered, but I think there is a lot of talent within this group. I'm very excited for it personally. I'm so excited to see what Zacch Pickens does. Because, again, as good as everyone else is, and that's why the season will be successful if, again, I'm talking about Zacch Pickens, if he pans out, it's going to make that entire group better. It really is. It's just like with Kinlaw. Kinlaw carried that group. He did. I mean, other guys played well, don't get me wrong. But it was the Javon Kinlaw show. There's no question. It was the Javon Kinlaw show. So I'm very, very excited as far as just what Zacch Pickens brings to the table, what this entire group brings. I think there's a lot of good depth here. You know, and I do not want to sound like Will Muschamp last year because I just don't. But this is the deepest group of defensive tackles South Carolina's had, and probably defensive linemen as a whole. Obviously, we're going to talk about the ends on the defensive ends on Monday, but this is as deep as they've been at this position. So I'm going to give them a B-. I think the potential is even higher than that, but I think a B- feels right now. You got to replace Javon Kinlaw. That's the big thing. You got to replace Javon Kinlaw. Like I said, is it going to be Pickens alone? Is it going to be multiple guys? But you've got to find a way to make up for his disruptiveness that you lost in the NFL draft. So that is the defensive tackles. Again, I'm very excited to be talking defense because, like I said, I'm really pumped for this Gamecocks defense. I think there's a lot of talent, and we're gonna be going through all these position units, and at every single position unit on defense, I feel like you can look at the names and just say to yourself, there are guys right here that could be playing on Sundays. I mean, there are guys, you know, and I don't know that you can really say that about the offense right now, you know, with certainty. On defense, there are guys that you know they're going to be playing on Sundays, period. Point blank. If they play up to their potential, they will be playing on Sundays. So I'm excited to continue breaking down, diving into this Gamecocks defense for sure. All right, let's get into our news and notes, and then we'll tackle your listener questions. First things first, Jadeveon Clowney ranked 41st in the NFL Top 100. Is it too high? Is it too low? I think it's about right. When he's healthy, though, I think he is one of the better pass rushers in the NFL. No question. We all know how good Jadeveon Clowney is. I'll be interested to see what team he signs with, though. And we actually released a piece, Ethan Kelly, really nice piece earlier in the week, talking about J.D. Clowney, where he might go. I swear to God, if he goes to the Patriots, I will freak. I will flip my shit if he goes to the Pats. Another big piece of news that actually dropped Wednesday afternoon. JUCO running back ZaQuandre White has been cleared. He's been academically cleared. He is getting on campus. A lot of you asking what type of impact can this dude have. He was the number one JUCO running back, a guy who started his career at Florida State. Actually played linebacker for the Seminoles. Went to JUCO, again, number one running back. Listen, it's very intriguing. I still fully expect Marshawn Lloyd to be the feature back, to be the bell cow. I really do expect him to be the guy. But I'll tell you this, from White's tape, man, I mean, if he is utilized properly, he's a playmaker. There's no question. He is a damn playmaker. He is a guy can make guys miss in space. I'd love to see them utilize him catching the ball out of the backfield. This dude's an athlete, though. There's no question. This dude is a freaking athlete. So how does Mike Bobo, again, utilize him in his scheme? Could we see them getting Lloyd and White on the field at the same time? I mean, you've also got to factor in you have Kevin Harris as well. So you have a lot of good options. This is a crowded running back room, which is a good thing. Listen, competition's great. I love it. I love the competition. Iron sharpens iron. Fully believe in that. It'll just be really interesting, though, like I said, how does the coaching staff, how does Mike Bobo use a guy like this with his athleticism? Again, because this is an offense that needs all the weapons it can get. I mean, there is nobody you're turning away at this point. With all the question marks and, debuting a new offensive scheme, we will see. But I'm excited. I mean, definitely. Good to get him cleared. It always sucks when you're in the recruiting process and you get these guys that you get them committed or whatever, and then they end up not qualifying. That seemed like to be a thing with Spurrier a lot. I don't know what it was with Spurrier, but it was like every year we'd have some kid committed and just could not get him in. Could not get him in school. Could not get him cleared. And it was just like, what the is going on? So I'm glad White got cleared. Again, this offense needs all the playmakers it can get. We'll have to see how Bobo utilizes them. Just another toy from Mike Bobo's offense for sure. All right, let's get into your listener questions. Have a couple here. Krusty Andy says, who wins in the Thunderdome? All-out brawl. Who is the alpha male? And I'm assuming you're talking amongst the defensive tackles. I'm going to go – I'll tell you this, man. Jabari Ellis is a big old cat. That's a big dude, man. I mean, he's 6'3", 285. I don't know, though. Jabari Ellis seems like a nasty dude, man. I mean, you could go Pickens. Sandage is a big boy too, bro. Sandage is a big – dude, you know what? I am going to go Sandage because did you see Sandage body Christian Wilkins 2 years ago? Yeah. Give me Rick Sandage. Give me Ricky Sandage for sure. Scott W. Lawson. Who's the next potential Kinlaw on the D-line, whether inside or outside Buck? I think it's Zacch Pickens. I don't know how you can look anywhere else. I think Pickens has the build of it. I think he's an athletic guy. Again, I think he used his freshman year to get his body right. And like I said, that's what most of these guys do. That's why it's so tough to ask freshmen to play on the defensive front or the offensive line because they're just physically not there. So I think Zack Pickens made the most of his freshman year, made the most of the spring, probably making the most of the summer. He's gotten his body right, up to 300 pounds of good weight. I think it's got to be Pickens. I think it has to be Pickens. Again, his ceiling is the highest amongst this group, like I said earlier. And that is the guy you recruited him to be. You recruited him to be the next Kinlaw. That's the whole reason you recruit a guy like Zacch Pickens, to be the next Javon Kinlaw. So certainly I think Zacch Pickens could be. Scott W. Lawson, one more question. What differentiates a guy being more fit for D tackle versus D end, and then Buck too? I think it just comes down to what your playing weight is. I mean, the lighter you are, obviously the farther off the ball you're going to move. So, you take a guy like Kingsley Enagbare, and it's just how quickly can you move with that weight you have? You know what I mean? I mean, obviously there's more that goes into it, but you're going to put your guys that are a little bit leaner on the outside. You're going to put your guys that are bigger on the line at the tackle position. I mean, that's just kind of how it goes. So it all depends on their body frame, body structure, what they're at as far as playing weight. But I definitely think Pickens was a guy that could have probably went either way. What wasn't he like 260, I think, at one point? And they bulked him up a lot. So at that point, you sort of have to make the decision, okay, am I going to lean up and be an outside guy, or am I going to put on a bunch of weight and be an interior guy? So that's really just what it comes down to. What's your playing weight at? I guess what best fits the player too. I think each individual player is different. So I think that probably has a lot to go into it as well. So appreciate the questions, guys. Have a phenomenal conversation. Mike Uva of WACH FOX, if you're listening right now, I would say most everyone that's tuned in probably knows who Mike Uva is. He's one of the best in the business, one of the best sports media guys around. Definitely does a phenomenal job in the Columbia market with WACH FOX. A guy that I'm really good friends with, really respect, really look up to, really admire for what he has done and is doing in Columbia, South Carolina. Great conversation. We talk about a little bit of everything, so sit back, relax, enjoy. All brought to you by our friends over at SeatGeek. Again, go download the SeatGeek app, go to SeatGeek.com. Use the promo code SPURSUP. You're going to save $20 off your first purchase. Guys, sports are on their way back. We've already seen MLB. The NFL is going to come back. I think college football is going to be back. And I don't know if it'll be today, tomorrow, a month from now, a year from now. Fans are going to be back in the stadiums. You're already seeing North Carolina, Ohio State. Others are talking about they're planning on having fans in the seats. You want your tickets, SeatGeek is the best way to go, especially when, you saw a school like UNC. They're not even doing season tickets anymore. It's just going to be free market. So in that regard, guys, they're going to be trying to charge an arm and a leg for tickets. You want to make sure you're getting the best bang for your buck. You're getting the best deal possible. SeatGeek is going to help you more than any other service to do that. They're going to make your life so much easier because they're going to point you in the direction of the best bang for your buck, of the cheapest tickets possible with the best seat. So again, that's our friends at SeatGeek. Go download the SeatGeek app or go to SeatGeek.com. Use the promo code SPURSUP, that's SPRSUP, to save $20 off your first purchase. Enjoy this conversation with Mike Uva of WACH FOX. All right, joining us today on the Spurs Up Show, I'm very, very excited. If you are familiar with South Carolina media, local media here in the Columbia market, then you've definitely heard this guy's name before. Has more accolades than I can even list, but I'm going to try. He's at WACH FOX. He's been honored twice by the South Carolina Broadcasters Association, was named Sportscaster of the Year in 2017. He received the Award of Merit in 2018. Also named the Carolina Sportscaster of the Year in 2018. And earned himself a nomination for an Emmy for Sportscaster of the Year by the Southeast Chapter in 2019. This guy's done it all, covered college football national championships, World Series, Super Bowls, March Madness. He's really done it all. And obviously, again, if you're a Gamecock fan, or if even you're a Clemson fan, if you've seen him around, you definitely know. If you're familiar with the Columbia media market, you are familiar with Mr. Mike Uva. Mike, appreciate you taking the time again with WACH FOX. Very, very excited to get you on the show.
No, Chris, I really appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. So, Mike, you're a Northeastern guy, Peabody, Massachusetts, went to Assumption College, former college athlete like myself. But I want to start, obviously, again, people are familiar with you, what you do in the local Columbia market, but just kind of talk about where your interest came as far as sports media is concerned, where you got your start, and kind of just what's led you to where you currently are now.
Yeah, I was born in a football household. The very first day I came out of the hospital, my dad brought me to practice because my dad's been coaching high school football since the day I was born. He put me on a little table with a car seat, and I think the water girls watched out for me. So, I think I was all right. I don't think a football hit me that day, but maybe one did. Maybe that explains why I am the way I am. But, just always loved being around sports. If I wasn't doing what I'm doing now, I'd probably be coaching college football at a Division II level and working my way up. But high school, I wanted to get into being around sports in some capacity, and one of my college teammates, he suffered a C5 injury to his spinal cord, his vertebrae. And the crazy thing about that was the year prior, his triplet brother fractured the same C5 injury, and I was on the field for both of those. And I remember doing the story on the one happening the second time because he had to go down to the Shepherd Center down in Atlanta. And it got me wanting to do sports writing, and I got into that, and my story got shared and published in a couple of different local newspapers in Massachusetts, and feedback came in. I'm like, you know what, maybe this is something I want to do. So I thought I was going to do a writing, but then a TV opportunity came during college, and we created a TV show from scratch, and we had some great guests on. John Butchergrass came on, Mark Navarro came on. A lot of the students fit very similar to what you're doing with these phone calls. And first opportunity came at ESPN Boston covering high school sports, and then I went to little old Greenville, Mississippi, which I tell people, nicest people in the world, but there's only 2 roads and 2 bars, not much else to do. And then Corey Miller got me over here through a golf tournament that we met over in Greenville, Mississippi. And the rest is history. I've been here since 2016, just celebrated 4 years on Monday. So it's amazing how fast everything's gone, but very fortunate to be working in South Carolina because I think it's so underrated because everyone just thinks, okay, college sports, it's not like the pros. It's not, but you know what? There's something very special. Not just USC, Clemson, even SC State and some of these smaller schools. There's just something special about covering sports in South Carolina.
For sure. Mike, talk about where your inspiration comes from, because I want to go back to a conversation I know you probably recall we had a little bit ago, a couple months ago now at this point, I would say. You talked to me, and again, you can tell the full story, but you just kind of talked about your inspiration. You take pictures. I guess you have like sportscasters, guys you look up to as far as like that are guys that are established guys in sports media. And I remember us talking about that briefly. Just sort of tell more about that, I guess, and just tell the people, I guess, where your inspiration comes from to do what you do.
Yeah, I'd flip it around if I had it still up right now. I have my makeshift backdrop right now, as I told you. For those that don't know, and a lot of people wouldn't know because why would they? I'm moving down to a different apartment and getting out of here actually tomorrow, moving everything out. So that's why there's nothing on the walls. But I remember I told you, one of my mentors who I ran into college at Assumption, at Assumption College in Worcester, Massachusetts. I met him when Gino Auriemma was speaking at our school, because Gino's son, Michael, was a sixth man at Assumption. He came off the bench. He transferred into Assumption, and Gino would always be there. But Gino did a speaking engagement at Assumption, and we went and, we interviewed him. And, this guy comes over, this old guy. He's like, what are you guys doing? Like, who you guys with? What high school did you go to? And come to find out, this guy not only went to Assumption, but went to my high school. And I just, grew a great relationship with him. His name's John DePietro. And this guy was, did radio, did sales, he did it all. And being able to learn from a guy like that, he told me, just the little things that we should all do anyway, but we just sometimes don't. Talking about doing the small things like writing a handwritten thank you card. Well, he told me to take it one step further. A lot of these people in TV, or just people in radio as well, and just media personalities, they're used to getting their photos taken with people. He said, take a photo with them, but get their business card, write them a handwritten thank you card, send 2 pictures, tell them to keep one, and have them sign one and send one back, and start just keeping them. So I started a wall, and what his whole point was supposed to be is, as you get further in this profession, you're going to appreciate the journey so much more. You can look back. And I look back, just seeing some of the first photos I've had, one of them was being Chris Berman, being able to meet Chris Berman at an event, and Chris giving me advice, just as simple as just have fun, be yourself. There's no blueprint. And I know what you're doing. There's no blueprint for what you've been doing. I know we talk about this all the time. I might not necessarily agree with everything you say or do, but at the same time, too, I know you've worked your tail off. And, to be able to create what you have, there was no blueprint for that. And I think a lot of people, not just sports media, just people in life can take something away from that is, sometimes there's not going to be a blueprint. Look what's going on in the world right now. There's no blueprint of how to handle this kind of stuff. So, having advice like that has definitely made me appreciate things. But I've always told them, I told Chris Berman this, I told John Butchergrass, I told some of these people that I've met, I said, I want to make that 5 minutes, 10 minutes you gave me worth your while sometime down the line. And, I have email exchange with Butchergrass sometimes. And, anytime something happens, he's just so happy to hear it. And I just want to be able to continue to do that. So just little things like that. But it was on my wall when I came in. And it's just like a constant reminder of, hey, you know what? You made a promise to some people. Don't let them down.
Now, Mike, what years were you at Assumption again? Just remind me.
2010 to 2014.
Okay, perfect. So we're about the same age then. So we kind of both experienced this, because I want to you sort of touched on something, and I appreciate the kind words as far as there's no blueprint. And I think we've definitely seen that in the sports media world as far as the evolution of social media. It's so funny that I have a lot of conversations with people, and we all, we both know, because we live in that space, that social media at times, there can be a lot of toxicity and there can be a lot of negatives that come about it. But I always tell people, I'm very hesitant to bash, say, a Twitter or any other social media platform, because, 10 years ago, like I wouldn't have a business without those platforms. 10 years ago, that wasn't even really possible. But I want to get your take, again, being where you are in the sports media world, just your overall take on the evolution of social media, how it's affected sports media, how it's changed it, and I guess where you think it's going.
Well, not to do a history lesson, but I think back to when I was in college. One of my sports journalism classes, our assignment was, to write the future of sports journalism, how you see it in 5, 10, 15 years. And I don't think anyone really expected to see the things that we're seeing necessarily, or how we're seeing them. Being able to go live on your phone. Think about that. I know it's simple right now, but think back just 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. Being able to go live. I remember when Snapchat came out. Just me and my roommates being in our room, just like, what is this? It's funny to think about that, because it wasn't that long ago. But I just remember doing that story, and the title I had for it was Fast Food, Faster Journalism. And that's just the way it's become. Everything we do has to be instant. And obviously that can be very dangerous too, because now we're going up against people that aren't quote unquote doing it the blueprint way, like people like yourself, who are working hard. And like I said, there's no right way to get into this business anymore. Obviously, and that's the other thing. People sometimes laugh, or they just kind of raise their eyebrows like, really? When I say this, I didn't go to a journalism school. I didn't even do an internship, because I had to make a decision when I was in college. My coaches kind of told me, my assistant coaches, they're like, all right, you want to miss spring football to do an internship. That's great. Can't guarantee you a spot when you come back.
All right.
And what am I going to do? So that's why I had to create a TV show from scratch at that point. So, and everything kind of worked out, because I just listened to people and just shut up and just did whatever I had to do just to to break into the business. But I think the amazing thing is sometimes is when you think about just everything that we have right now, people are getting their information in different ways. You got to find a way to be able to grab people's attention, number one. Number two, you got to be able to do it in a way that's going to be able to connect with them, that is going to make them want to come back for more. I think of local sportscasting, and it's this like cookie cutter business, or it has been. Some of the greats have really been able to stand out, but you don't want to look like an asshat. You know what I mean? You don't want to go out there and do these gimmicky things every single night, because some people might like that, but the majority of people aren't going to like that. So you got to find a way to be able to be unique, give people something that they haven't seen before, or they won't see anywhere else in town, or anywhere else for that matter, because now you're going up against national places or places like regional, like the SEC network. It's the same way on Twitter. You got to be able to do stuff. But going back to just Twitter battles, it's one of those things. I've there's few things that I regret that I say on Twitter, but I like to have fun with it. I like to have fun with it. My mentality is, because I like to, I have back and forth with people. That's one of the things that I feel like separates myself from some of the other local sportscasters. I want to be able to be engaging with people, because at the end of the day, we're the middleman between the team and the viewers. So I want to be able to have those conversations, those back and forth, those bar talks over on Twitter. So I think you got to be able to, realize I'm no better than anyone else. Don't swing down at people. Be able to make jokes. I can laugh at myself. I don't care if someone makes a joke about me. But when I make jokes about people, I don't want to swing down. We're just having fun, just busting balls. But there's obviously a line. And like I said, there's few moments I can recall that maybe I crossed the line that I wish I could have took those back, or went about it a little different.
Yeah, I was going to say, Mike, I think that's why you're great at what you do, or one of the many reasons you're great at what you do, is just your humility. You can definitely hear it coming out for sure, and I think we see that, especially those of us that follow you on social media, which I would assume, if you're listening to this show right now, is mostly everyone. So, again, it's kudos to you. I want to kind of switch gears, something funny, because I saw you tweeted a few days ago. I definitely want to hear the story behind it was 2 or 3 days ago. You were talking about your 4-year anniversary at WACH FOX and your first week on the job. You broke a laptop, and there's a funny video of it. You're like flipping it open, and the thing just completely falls apart. Just kind of give the backstory on that, because I saw that, and I think everybody got a pretty good laugh out of it.
See, you got to realize, even though I grew up right outside of Boston, when I went to Greenville, Mississippi, like I said, nicest people in the world, they're still probably not as tech savvy as some other places. So I go to Greenville, Mississippi. This is my first TV job. There's a lot of things that I just have never used before. I had an iPad, or I have an iPad still, but I didn't know that they invented tablets where the keyboard attached to it. So, I come over, I'm just, feeling like this is great. And we're pre-taping something too, because we did a lot of that my first 2 years here. Especially with those 30-minute sports shows. So I came out just to do a quick segment, and I get the thing, and I think, all right, everything, Joe Cool over here, and boom, flip the thing open, and the thing comes attached. And we're rolling. We're obviously live. Right. So that's why I didn't say what I wanted to really say, because always when you're in front of the camera, you just become second nature. Right. Or you try to, at least, remember, when that red light goes on. And I saw that, and I thought, okay, my career's done. My career's done. I said, I haven't even been here for a month, and I'm breaking things, and, I'm done. So I was, that was bad. And the best part about it is we had someone come out, and they played it off, too. And they're like, oh, man, I don't know if the GM's going to like this. You have to tell them. I'm just like, gosh, I don't even know what to say at this point. And then they finally told me, put it back together, and they started typing on the keyboard. Yeah. So, I was I can't believe that was 4 years ago, but I thought I was done just because I thought I broke a laptop, which was just a detachable iPad.
They're like, Mike, relax, man. You're good. Just relax, rookie. No, so I want to switch gears once again, something a little bit more serious, but I definitely want to bring it up, Mike. I'm someone that, growing up, I was really, really close with my grandfather. I think similar to you were. My grandfather passed in 2014. Yours passed in 2018. It's literally your pinned tweet at the top of your Twitter talking about your grandfather. But I'm someone that was really close with him, and a lot of the things that I do, the reasons I do them, a lot of my inspiration came from him. He was like my best friend growing up, really. Obviously my dad, we were really close, but I think there's just a different connection, you know what I mean, with my grandfather. He taught me how to play golf, taught me different things, life lessons, etc. And again, my grandfather passed in 2014. Yours passed in 2018. I just want to hear a little bit more from you about just the inspiration you drew from him, because again, I've seen different pieces you've done talking about him, and I know you guys are really close, and I think he was a major influence and a lot of the reason you are the way you are today.
I appreciate you bringing that up, Chris. Yeah, it's something that means a lot to me. When I was in college, I just remember, we were in a class, and I don't know how it came up. We're in a circle though, and the professor asked, how many people have, one grandparent, and the hands go up, or excuse me, 4 grandparents, or 1, excuse me. Then we kept going up, 2 grandparents, 3, and I was the only person in the class that had 4. And that was, 23 years old at the time, or 22. So, I don't think it really, I think it started at that point, kind of like, started to hit me. It's like, I've been very fortunate, and I grew up about 20 minutes from both sets of grandparents. So, I saw them all the time. They all came to my sporting events. I was very, very fortunate. I'm not saying I took it for granted, but I'm sure there's some things that maybe I didn't appreciate at the time as much, just because you just think, all right, that's the norm. And then you start meeting other people, and some people don't even have parents, some people being raised by their grandparents. They don't even have their parents in their life. So it, really hits you. It was very tough, just because, like I said, in a video that I actually posted 2 years ago with that, I found out literally right before I went on air. And I've had conversations about making sure, because my family was afraid that I was going to find out from someone else. And I'm actually glad they told me, as tough as that night was finding that out before I went on air. Because shortly after, I started getting some text messages, sorry for your grandfather. If I found out that way, I don't even know how I would have been able to do the show. Right. So that was obviously a very, very difficult night, and it's a terrible, terrible disease, Alzheimer's. And our relationship obviously is really close, because I'm the oldest grandchild on both sides. But to be able to be his namesake, and, you feel like you have that, you have that responsibility, especially once he passes away. As you get older, you realize that. So I think it's one of those things that, I'm very fortunate to have a fantastic father. My mother's amazing too, but my father, his character is outstanding. And he learned that a lot from, obviously, my grandfather. So I think being able to have a guy like that in his life was huge for him. But I'm just very fortunate that I got to spend, 26 years having an amazing grandfather that I got to know very well. And I think as I continue to get older, I have another grandfather who, is approaching 92. He's out there still hitting the golf ball better than I could ever do. I think you really appreciate these things as you continue to get older. So not to get all mushy, but I was very, very close to my grandfather. I'm close to all my grandparents. And, it's just something that I just want to continue to carry that name and make it proud, because he was a big figure in the community where he grew up in.
Great stuff. Mike, I definitely want to ask you, because I think one of the most intriguing things about you, and something that, people in the local market, Columbia market, in the state of South Carolina, when they're in your position and, you have done something that I feel like is so hard to master. Listen, you're going to have people that disagree with you, dislike you. I don't think you're doing your job if you don't. But you've been able to do something. Again, I look at other guys, and I'm not going to name names, but you look at other guys in the state of South Carolina that try to teeter the line and try to be fair to both of the major universities in South Carolina. Obviously, Clemson and South Carolina, the two schools, the fan bases hate each other. And most of the guys that I see come through, not even fault of their own, really, because I think it's just so hard not to somewhat pick a side, or at least come off as you favor one side or the other. And I'll say, especially now with the success Clemson's having, Clemson's the reason you got to go to the national championship, and you start to do all these different things. And so I think I've seen some guys, you develop sort of a soft spot because you enjoy covering the team that's winning, that's having all the success. Versus South Carolina, since you've gotten in the Columbia market, it's been a little bit of a struggle. We can both say that. It's been a struggle. Just what do you think has made you so good at, again, just walking that line and being so 50-50? Because I really do feel like there is mutual respect for you from South Carolina and Clemson fans. And I just don't think everybody in the South Carolina market can say that. And it's really no fault of their own. I want to make that clear. It's no fault of their own. It's just really hard to do. But what do you think's made you successful in doing that?
Well, I appreciate that because it's obviously one of the most difficult things in the world because I know at the end of the day, I'm in the backyard of Gamecock country. I mean,
Right.
We're literally 10 minutes away from Williams-Brice. So, you got to realize, your audience mainly is going to be Gamecock fans, but at the same time, we're in the state capital. And I think that upsets people sometimes. It's like, why are you leading off with Clemson? Or why are you talking about Clemson as much? Well, we're in the state capital. They're just as important, whether people want to realize that or not, or say that or not. They're just as important. I think what honestly has helped me is when I was a high school beat writer, I had to cover our Thanksgiving Day arrival. I mean, that's a huge thing in Massachusetts, Thanksgiving Day football, high school football, being able to wake up, you play your Thanksgiving Day arrival. I had to cover them, and I had to cover them against, my high school. And, things went very well for me that lone year that I worked on it, on that beat. And I wanted to be able to continue that, but I knew that Thanksgiving Day was going to be very difficult. So you just have to go out there and you got to be just as fair as possible. And I think from there, being able to go to somewhere like Mississippi, and I covered Ole Miss and Mississippi State, I covered the Egg Bowl. It's very similar. I think it's nastier with the rivalry here with Clemson and USC, and that's not a bad thing at all.
Right.
As I always call it, as I like to call it, I don't call it hate. I'm sure there's plenty of people that say they hate Clemson, but I believe it's true sports hate.
Right.
I think the sports hate is just the way I look at it because, not to get all philosophical. I mean, there's people that are going to, I hate the Yankees. I'm a Boston guy. I hate the Yankees. And I know some people say it's not the exact same thing because, some people go to USC, some people go to Clemson, and it can really divide a household, especially, when you're talking about 364 days leading up to the big game for football. So I think being able to use those experiences help you a little bit. But I think more than anything, you can't get a true grasp of what this rivalry is all about until you finally work in the state like here and you're here for a little bit. So I think when I first got here, I just was trying to do whatever I had to do, what I was being told. But then after that first year, you realize, all right, this is how things go down. Just be careful of how you word things. But at the same time, too, you can have fun with it. You can poke fun at USC fans. You can poke fun at Clemson fans. You can have fun with it. Because at the end of the day, people are going to get sensitive about it either way. If I say something bad about USC, I know I'm going to get attacked. If I say something bad about Clemson, I know, the Clemson fans are going to come out at me. So, it comes with the territory, like you said. But at the same time, too, you got to be able to have some fun with it because it's a rivalry like none other. And I'm very fortunate to have been able to cover it the last couple of years.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Roll Tide War Eagle 30 for 30 when I forget who it was said it, but it said in this state, and I would relate it to South Carolina, in this state you're either garnet and black or you're purple and orange, and if you're neither, they both hate you. And that's just that's just kind of how it goes for most people. Like I said, I really credit you because you've done a good job. At least, if nothing else, I think you have the mutual respect from both sides, which is obviously what you're aiming for. Mike, I do want to move into Gamecock football because, again, you are here in Columbia. You cover the Gamecocks a lot. Like you said, you are that middleman between the fans and the team necessarily. And I think the interesting thing with you, Mike, you joined the WACH FOX team. You joined the WACH FOX team as the weekend sports anchor in July of 2016. So you have seen the Will Muschamp era because, listen, that's, if not the biggest storyline, that is one of the biggest storylines going in this 2020 football season. It is Will Muschamp, his job status, what he needs to do to keep his job, obviously the pandemic affecting things, but that's one of the bigger storylines. So you've seen the Will Muschamp era from the beginning, which I think is really, really interesting. Just talk about, I guess, first off, your experience covering South Carolina, but overall, I'm sure you were somewhat familiar with what Steve Spurrier did at South Carolina, the success he had, and overall just your take on the Will Muschamp era, and then feeding into this year, I guess, the job he's done and what you think South Carolina as a program needs to see from him in this team in 2020, given all things are normal this 2020 season.
Well, I mean, it's a broken record, especially for an outsider. That even though I've been here for 4 years, for an outsider to come in here and say it, but he was inheriting a team that needed rebuilding. We knew it was going to take some time, and I'm not saying that as an excuse for what's been happening these last couple of years, because you get to a point where you're getting some of these players who are capable of being able to do some good things. and it just hasn't panned out. It just hasn't panned out the way that we thought things were going to go, especially after year 2. You go to the Outback Bowl, Jake Bentley plays out of his mind. You're thinking, okay, man, we have our quarterback. We have our quarterback. We have our team. We're losing some key pieces like Sky Moore on defense after that Outback Bowl. But at the same time, too, we should be able to take it to the next level. I know that injuries happen everywhere, but for whatever it is, and I don't know if it's the water down here in Columbia, but it's just been killing USC. And not just for football. I mean,
yeah, basketball, too, is really bad.
I don't know what it is. I really don't know what it is. So, I mean, I've never really been a person to use excuses on injuries because I think when you get to that point, you're kind of just – it's I have injuries right here and I have blaming the refs right here. Right. You're kind of close to each other. But when it happens year after year after year, it's just like, what is going on? Did Dabo Sweeney make a deal with the devil or something? Like, what's going on? Like, why is this continuing to happen with USC?
Right.
I truly believe, and this is from talking to people that are close with the program, talking to the players about it, because I remember I did a story on it last year. I can't remember what game it was. I mean, it was when the wheels were starting to fall off, that's for sure. I think maybe it was going into the Kentucky game. And I asked the players, what's your thoughts on Muschamp? Do you worry about him not being the guy moving forward if you guys lose this week? And every player came out and they said, he's the right guy. He's the right guy for this reason, that reason. They love him because he's a player's coach. They love him because he's able to develop them and get them ready for the NFL. All those things sound great. And I know we've had this conversation off here before, and I'm sure people would agree with that. No one's disagreeing with that, but they want to see the results here. And I think the unfortunate part is this. As great as that run was with Steve Spurrier during that, 2009, 2013 window, I could be off a year or two.
Yeah, no, you're right.
But my point being is, as great as that was, it brought the expectations up to a level that we've never seen here with USC football. I mean, yes, you can go back to the Black Magic year. Yes, you can go back and pick out seasons here and there. But for the most part, USC football has just always been mediocre. That's just the bottom line. Does that mean they should settle on that? Absolutely not, because they have the ability, especially being down here in the SEC, to be able to get the talent to be able to do this year after year, to be able to compete for at least an SEC East title. I think the part about what Muschamp has to do this year is, if there is a full schedule, you need to be able to at least get 7 wins. You need to be able to get to a bowl game, if there are even bowl games. And you need to be able to show that you have made progress on the offensive side of the football, because defense, I feel like defense is going to be all right. I feel like they have the talent. Yes, they're losing Kinlaw up front, and not having a guy like that from a pass rusher standpoint and want him can sometimes expose defensive backs a little bit, even though the defensive backs we have here, or I should say that USC has here, are incredible. You need to be able to put some pressure on the quarterback. Offensively, I don't know. Helinski's going into year 2, so there's no rookie excuses that you can use anymore if he is the guy. And you have Mike Bobo coming in, who's arguably probably one of the best offensive coordinators you could have got this offseason. So if you can't do it this year, I don't know when you're going to be able to. So there's no question about it that Muschamp's back is against the wall. But I truly believe they're going to show progress this year, even through a difficult schedule. And it's going to be difficult every year. That's what George Rogers said last year. I said, what do you think about that? He started laughing. He's like, it's the SEC. It's the SEC. And I guess, you could do the nitpick and saying, all right, well, they didn't play LSU and Alabama the last couple of years. It happens. It's going to be the rotating schedule, which I still don't understand how you play Alabama once every 5 years sometimes. But my point being is this has to be the year that Muschamp shows improvement with this program, because if not, I mean, you got Bob Caslin in there. I don't know how much longer he's going to sit back, especially when you have a team in your state, your rival, that has been doing so well. That's the other point, too. If Clemson wasn't playing as well, would people be as upset with Muschamp? I feel like people still would be upset, but I don't know if it would be the same level, because I think it bothers people. It bothers Gamecock fans seeing how well Clemson does, and they want to be able to keep up with that, and they have no argument for me here saying that that's not something that should be done.
Yeah, I think, Mike, you bring up a great point there, and something I was going to mention is that I think it's definitely made Will Muschamp's life and job a lot harder with the success Clemson's having, and Georgia too, but mainly Clemson. And I think you're right. I think it bothers Gamecock fans to the core, especially when you come off of dominating them for 5 years in a row. And I think a lot of Gamecock fans are salty in the sense that that should be us. Like, that's the way – that's the trajectory South Carolina was headed down, and it fell apart versus Clemson lost that 5 in a row, and they found a way to turn it around. Now they've won 6 in a row. So I definitely think and agree with you that, that's why, listen, when I was coming up as a Gamecock fan, it really clicked for me when I was, say, 12 years old, so around 2002, 2003. I always knew, and it still blows my mind to this day, Mike, just coming from the South Carolina fan perspective. I always knew Clemson as a 6-win, 7-win program, like pretty much on equal footing as South Carolina. And it was like, sometimes Clemson beat South Carolina, and more often than not, actually, but sometimes South Carolina beat Clemson. But like you said, it makes it a much tougher pill to swallow when South Carolina's fighting for 6 wins, 7 wins, really just fighting to be relevant in college football again on the national scale versus Clemson, top 5 team, top 2 team in the country going to national championships. There's just such a, the levels, as far as the level Clemson's on versus the level South Carolina is on. And again, as a Gamecock fan, it hurts to admit this, but it's the truth. The levels they're on are just completely astronomically different, not even in the same universe right now. So, I agree with you. I think it's a huge reason that Muschamp – it's one of the biggest reasons, I think, that Muschamp has caught such heat for sure.
Yeah, and I think, like I said before, at some point you got to decide, are we going to be a team that's going to be mediocre? Are we going to be a team that we have confidence in this coach? Because I know we talked about this before, and some Gamecock fans are going to get upset that I'm comparing them to them. Mark Stoops and what he's been able to do at Kentucky. Because those first couple of seasons – Stoops was in a similar situation. They really weren't able to turn the page. So, I've gone through it before as a former player. I don't like saying as the former player stuff, especially playing D2. It's like, that's nothing like the SEC. But my point being is there does take time to be able to adjust when you bring a new coach in. And my question to you was, because I know we've had this conversation, if USC were to get rid of Muschamp, and obviously timing comes down to it, you don't know what could happen in the offseason. I just don't know who the best fit is out there. I really don't. But at some point, though, change isn't a bad thing. Sometimes you need that change of voice. We saw it in other sports. You see with the Red Sox. You had Terry Francona, one of the best managers in baseball, won a World Series with the Red Sox. And what did they do? They had to get rid of him. Why? Because they just needed a new voice in that locker room. So I don't think it's time to move on from Muschamp quite yet. I am confident that he's going to be able to take it to the next level this year, especially with Mike Bobo at the helm at offensive coordinator. I'm very interested to see just how the offense is going to look this year, because it just seems like, going back from the Kurt Roper days, it seems like it's kind of just been musical chairs. It's like, all right, we're going to do this one year. We're going to do the tempo offense this year. It's just like I don't even know what the identity of this offense is. And I think that's the thing. When you talk about, it's so cliche to say about identity, about an offense, USC these last couple of years, I don't know what their identity has been. Yeah. We could get into week 6, week 7, week 8, and you have no idea what they are, because it still feels like they're trying to figure things out. And I think a lot of that has to do with the injuries. So, if they can stay healthy this year, and I know it's a big if, but if they can stay healthy this year, there's no reason why they shouldn't have at least 7 wins. I don't care what the schedule says. They have the talent to be able to do that.
Yeah, I was going to say, Mike, you're definitely right. It's not good when you're going into week 7, week 8, and I don't think even your own offense knows what it's good at. And I agree with you 110%. It doesn't matter who's been the OC, it seems. There truly has been no identity, again, fans not knowing. Like, you have no idea. Will we run it this week? Will we throw it? Will we do a mixture of both? Who knows what we're going to do? We don't even know what our strengths are. It's just been, Russian roulette. Again, I think it's so interesting. It's so fascinating, because the Will Muschamp conversation, I feel like you could literally talk about this every day, because it's such a, I say the word divisive. I don't want to say it in like a true negative connotation, but it's just such a intriguing conversation, because I feel like there's a large portion of fans on one side and there's a large portion of fans on other. But we're all on the same side in the sense we just want to see South Carolina football win and win consistently and put a team on the field we can all be proud of. And I agree with you. I look at that schedule. There is a path to 7 wins. There truly is a realistic path to 7 wins. I don't care who you are. And there is enough talent on this roster, just in my opinion, to get there. I guess the best thing about it, because, Mike, it's no secret how I feel about it. It's no secret that I'm sure that was maybe one of the first times a lot of people heard about me after the North Carolina game. And, fair, unfair, the label that was put on me after that is whatever. But the best thing about this Will Muschamp situation is I really feel like, Mike, the results on the field will tell us. Like, I'm not going to have to lobby one way or the other. We're going to be able, again, all things being normal, normal very loosely, because who knows what the college football season will look like. But I just feel like with the Will Muschamp situation, I feel like it's going to be very black and white. You're either going to see progress or you're going to see regression, or you're going to see a program that's sort of just, staying where it's been. Like, I don't think we're going to have to think very hard about this one because, again, I don't think it's going to be a situation where, again, in this year with the pandemic, who knows, but I don't think he's going to get the benefit of the doubt. Like, if the program is not making progress, and like you mentioned, Bob Caslen, he seems like a very no-nonsense type of dude. Like, a military guy, and I have a really good friend of mine that was in the military, and he told me, he's like, one of the problems, not problems, but one of the biggest things with these guys that go from being military to civilian, in the military, there's no gray area. There's either you get the job done or you do not. So I think with Muschamp, it's going to be very similar because, again, like you were saying, and like I've said all offseason, with the talent you've recruited and with this roster, and you look at the schedule, yes, it's tough, but it's going to be tough every single year, like you mentioned. And there is a path to 7 wins. If you don't make a bowl game, again, I think it's just going to be very black and white at that point. Like, I don't think I'm going to have to go on my podcast and put up an hour-long rant hoping, it makes some type of influence or just putting my thoughts out there. Like, I really think it's going to be a very black and white thing for South Carolina.
Well, what I'm going to say to that to start, kind of going in a little bit of a different direction, is I think the only thing that can help Muschamp this season, if they have a poor year and they don't make a bowl game, this is just, assuming that everything's going to be normal in terms of, okay, the same amount of games, there'll be all the bowl games,
right?
Is that what's going to happen from a financial situation? I know Gamecock fans don't want to hear that, but that's a possibility.
No doubt.
We think about baseball this past year, and I know it's apples to oranges in a sense because baseball pretty much got washed out after the first couple weeks. But from a football standpoint, it's just like from a financial burden, do they have the money or will they be willing to use that money to do a buyout if they believe the results just aren't there? Just because, my fear is you use that money, what could that mean for another program? And it might not be a program that people are huge of, and I'm not trying to take shots at any in the USC sports, but one of the sports that people have been talking about financially that could be one of the first to go would be men's soccer. And, you think about some of that, and I don't care if you're a men's soccer fan or you're a Tiddlywinks fan, it doesn't matter what it is, to lose an athletic program for USC would just be a bad luck. Especially being such a big school. Such a big school. I mean, it's awful to see what happened at Furman when we're seeing at some of these other schools across the country losing sports. But I just think from South Carolina's perspective, it just wouldn't make it. It wouldn't be their best interest to do that. But we'll see what happens from a financial situation, and we'll see if Muschamp even gets himself in a situation like that. But I think more than anything, what we've seen over the last couple of years from a recruiting standpoint, because I think that's something else that people talk about. They talk about Muschamp, what he's able to do from a defensive standpoint, what he's able to do from being able to develop guys at the NFL level and be ready to play at the NFL. And we've seen that over the last couple of years with some of the studs that have been just performing these last couple of seasons in the NFL, is that he's able to be a phenomenal recruiter. We've seen that over the last couple of years. Now those guys are starting to be, okay, we're sophomores now, the Zacch Pickens of the world. We're seeing some of these juniors come in. These freshmen that are talented. Marshawn Lloyd has the ability to come in, and he might be able to compete for the starting job at running back. You have those pieces in place. What are they going to do on the field now? It's like you have all the ingredients in the world to be able to make this amazing dinner. How's it going to taste, though? Right. How's it going to taste? You have the ingredients. Are you going to be able to make this meal taste amazing? Because if not, they're going to go out there and they're going to find another chef that can do it.
For sure. No, I think definitely bringing up the financials is a great point. I think after the season, if they were to part ways, I think it's still like $13 million. And speaking just, for example, on like Gamecocks men's soccer, listen, it's not necessarily a sport that, I cover, really any of us cover in full detail, right? You have to focus where the attention is, and that is the big three. But I can definitely speak from knowing Gamecock fans, and, my sister was a student there, and, people take a lot of pride in the men's soccer program. A lot of people go to Stone Stadium, they fill up the stadium. And, definitely, I don't think if it's between, using the money and cutting I don't think that's a good idea. I agree with you. I think it'd be a terrible look, and it's not fair to those kids. And South Carolina, again, has a good program. They've got guys that have played professionals, played I don't know a ton about soccer, but played overseas, stuff like that. So they have a great program. I definitely agree with you. I don't think that would be the move at all. I think it's intriguing. I want to ask you, Mike, because you're, like I said, you're unbiased. I mean, you're a Boston guy. You came into the South Carolina market. You're around the team. You see the facilities. You see the fan base. You get to go into the ops building every single Tuesday during the week during the football season to hear Will Muschamp speak. What do you like? I'm just curious again to hear the outsider's perspective, because me as a fan, I truly believe the ceiling for South Carolina football, as far as the program that I think they can be. I think South Carolina has it. Like Steve Spurrier said way back in 2004 when he was hired, South Carolina has the fan base. They have the fan support. They have the facilities. I think South Carolina has beautiful facilities. I think they have a recruiting base. There's enough talent in the state of South Carolina, and you're surrounded by Georgia, Florida, North Carolina starting to produce a ton of talent. I think there's no reason why, and I guess that's the thing that makes me so hard on Muschamp, is that I feel like there's no reason why South Carolina, I'm not even saying be on Clemson's level, but have a program that wins, 8 to 9 games every single year, 7 being the absolute minimum. I really think for South Carolina football, winning less than 7 games in a season should be a massive disappointment with the resources you have, the talent you have. I think South Carolina, though, realistically can build in the SEC a program that wins 8 to 9 games consistently, and maybe every 2, 3, 4 years, maybe you have a veteran team, your schedule's favorable, you catch lightning in a bottle, you win the East, and you go to Atlanta and you compete for a championship. Do you think that is realistic expectations? I guess, again, someone that's around the program, you interact with the fans, you see the facilities, you see the talent roll in. Like, what do you think is the realistic, I guess, ceiling, or realistic, what can this program achieve at South Carolina, you think?
Absolutely. There's no question about it that they have the ability to be able to go and compete for an SEC East title. I feel like year in and year out. I mean, we know how Georgia's going to be. We know what Dan Mullen's been able to do in a quick period of time with Florida. And we know that, Mark Stoops has done a pretty good job with Kentucky as well. And Kentucky's obviously going through some changes right now in comparison to what their rosters looked like over the last couple of years. But you have – what I like about South Carolina was funny. I don't know if you had a chance to listen to it. It was Deion Sanders. He was on one of the Part of My Take podcasts, and he was talking about his recruiting visits, and he talked about how Wisconsin recruited him. And he's like, why am I going to go? I live down in Florida, and they're going to bring me out in December in Wisconsin and say, hey, you should go play football here. Why would anyone do that? You have so many resources. I understand it's not as warm year-round, but, I mean, it's pretty warm here in South Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
For my northern background, that there's a reason why there's a lot of New Englanders, and I'm sorry, I can't claim Jersey people. There's a lot of us New Englanders that come down to USC or go to Coastal Carolina because the weather's just so warm. So you have the weather element, you have the fact that the talent in the South is just far more better across the board than it is in New England and some of these states up north. You have talent there. But across the board, you have more talent down here in the Southeast, and even into Texas and some of the areas too that you might have to be recruiting against the Big 12. But my point being is this: you have everything at USC. You have the facilities, you have the fan base, you have the history. I mean, to be able to see that statue of George Rogers, Clemson can't claim that right now. Who knows? I mean, we'll see what happens with Trevor Lawrence this year, but they can't claim that. You're the only school in the state that has a Heisman Trophy winner. You have things that no one else has been able to say and you can be able to do. You have that at your disposal right now. And, what Clemson's been able to do, I think if I've been able to learn anything about schools in South Carolina, if Clemson can be able to do it, South Carolina should be able to. And I understand people can talk about the ACC schedule and this and that. And, look, historically, we know how dominant the SEC has been for a long period of time. I mean, I can't even just say, 15, 20, 30 years. It goes back further than that. But we know how good the ACC was at one point. We know how good Miami was. We know how good, and I know Miami was, back and forth with going with the Big East, but they were pretty good in the ACC for a period of time too. We know how good Florida State was. The conference, top to bottom, is it as good as the SEC? Absolutely not. But at the same time, too, there was a period of time where Clemson actually had to go through a gauntlet. It wasn't as easy as it is right now. So it's not going to be easy. But there's no reason why if Clemson, which is in the middle of nowhere, and you have 5 points down here, you have all these other things that you can be able to bring recruits in. And I understand there's really you don't want the kids to be going down there during football season or probably out of season too, especially now with we talked about Snapchat at the beginning. Anyone can just film you being out. Right. But there's just so much more down here. And to be able to be in the state capital, SEC, you have just so much more at your disposal. So there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to get these guys. And if you're able to get those guys, you should be able to go out there and compete for an SEC East title year in and year out. And that's just how I truly believe it should be the case. And we're going to find out whether or not Muschamp is the guy to be able to do that or not. But like I said, right now, I still have confidence with him. We'll see how things pan out this year, though.
For sure. Mike, getting off of Gamecocks football, switching gears a little bit, you talked about your wall that you have and the pictures you take and the inspiration you've drawn from guys in the sports media world. I want to get your take, whether it be someone, they may be listening, maybe not, but your advice to someone, whether it was someone trying to get, break into sports media the way you've done, whether it be through the outlets of television or being a local beat writer or someone trying to break through and be their own entity, whether it be through social media, whatever, someone trying to get in the sports media world and break into that, what would be your piece of advice for them?
My advice to them is you have to realize that when you're not doing something, someone else is doing something. You know what I mean? Someone's finding a way to be able to get better. I remember when I worked in Mississippi, I hardly went home, and I love my family, and I wanted to go back. And I remember telling my mom, I said, look, the more I'm down here, the quicker I'm going to be able to get back up there one day, because that's my dream. My dream is to be able to work in Boston, to be able to work in a big market. So that was kind of just my mentality. So I use that and trying to just put it in a better way to be able to phrase it for other people. You just have to find ways to continue to work every day, because if you're not doing it, there is surely someone out there that wants your position. There's surely someone else that might not be doing it the same way. I mean, like the way you're doing it, that wants to be able to take, views in this way. And, there's other people out there that are grinding. There's no question about that. You can say that for anything in life, but especially TV. I think that's the most important thing you have to understand. I think number two, and as tough as it is sometimes, and it's going to be so cliche and kind of cheesy to say, but treat people right. Because this business is so, so small. It is amazing, when I got into it, just how many people told me that. And then the more I've climbed up, it's amazing how this person knows that person. Doesn't matter if they're all the way out in San Diego. Everyone knows each other in some capacity. So if you're going to do it from an orthodox standpoint or even the unorthodox, you just got to keep that in mind, that at some point you might cross someone that, that you might have to be able to say, hey, can you help me out here? The Dave Portnoys of the world, they're doing their own thing, and, they're fine. And Portnoy, I think he's done pretty well for himself. But the people that are doing things a little bit more traditionally, that's what I would tell them. And I would just say continue to just try to be creative. Be creative. Like I said, find that line of being entertaining but not looking like an asshat by doing gimmicky stuff all the time. People want to be able to be informed. There's so much information or so many different streams of ways to be able to get your information that you got to be able to find a way that's going to be able to help you separate yourself from everyone else. What can you do to be able to do that? Is it something that, people haven't seen before? Is it doing something that someone else that you've seen had done, but you can do it a little bit better? Be a student of the game. I mean, that's another thing I say. Go back, watch yourself. Don't be afraid to be able to critique yourself, even if it's something small. Fix your tie, do this and that. So just small stuff like that. But if you continue just to do it every day, like I said, I know it sounds cliche and kind of coach talk right now, but if you do that every day, you're going to be able to see some progress, and you'll be able to see progress quickly because, like I said, not everyone is willing to do those things. Do the things that other people aren't willing to do.
Grind, recognize, grind, Mike. I think that's why we get along so well, spoken like a true former athlete. Do you ever feel bad for the other South Carolina media guys? As far I feel like you're the best dressed media guy in South Carolina. You can probably see here. I dressed to impress today because I felt like when you're speaking to the Mike Uva.
You wanted me to wear my suit, but I left all my suits at the station.
We'll keep it casual. We'll keep it casual. It's fine. It's fine. I feel like I don't even know if you own another article of clothing. Probably suits and like football gear, and that's pretty much you.
Oh man, no, I do. But and people will probably laugh at this. The outlet I go to the most is Express. I've just become a big Express guy the last couple years. I don't know why. I think it's just the way that I like. I'm a slim fit kind of guy,
right?
And it kind of motivates me too to make sure that I'm continuing to go to the gym so that I'm not looking like
pudgy in the suit.
You want to make sure you're looking decent.
Right.
I mean, I'm not obviously modeling for GQ, but I don't want to be the guy, because that's the other thing too. I don't view myself as a public figure in the terms of somebody like these A-list, B-list celebrities. I'm a D-list celebrity. But at the same time, too, I'm a public figure. And I know that, if I go on TV and I look like a slob or I just look, bad or whatever, I'm fair game. Fair game. If I look scrawny, I'm fair game. Say I look like a string bean. I don't care. I mean, it comes with the territory. So, but no, I mean, I'm big with wearing T-shirts when I can, but I feel like I'm always just wearing a suit. But I will say this, though, just like I'm doing right now, 90% of the time, even when I'm in studio, I'm wearing shorts because you don't see from the waist down unless I have a guest and we're side by side, because the majority of the time, if it's someone like Colin Taylor from Gamecocks Central or someone like an athlete, they're probably going to be taller than me because I'm at 5'9" on a good day. So, I'll be on this little box sometimes to help me up. So you're going to see my pants. I can't get away with wearing the shorts at that point. So I love wearing shorts when I can. Not a big pants guy unless I have to, but I own a decent amount of suits. I'll just put it at that. Decent number.
Hey, I love it. Trust me. Dress for the job you want, not the one you have, right? You can't ever be over prepared. That is a true statement. Mike, what's going on with the Red Sox, man? I've been watching some Sox baseball, and they are struggling, my friend. The Braves have also been struggling too. But I couldn't get you out of here before because I know you're a baseball guy. We love Jackie. We all love Jackie. I've got a friend of mine that's from Boston. They actually got their NESN login, so shout out to them. But I've been watching some more Sox baseball more than normal because I've been watching all the baseball since sports returned. What's up with the Sox?
Why would you do that to yourself, though? I mean, it's not even worth watching right now.
I mean, I want to watch Jackie. I'm a Braves guy. I like watching all the games though. But yeah, it was so funny because I'm sure you follow again. We mentioned Barstow a little bit, but Carabas, he's the Red Sox guy, and he's talking about the pitchers they're throwing out there. He's like, who? I've never even heard of this guy.
I think in talking with Jack, let's start with Jackie Bradley because I guess I kind of jinxed him yesterday. So I put that tweet out saying Jackie's second in the league right now for batting average. He leads the league in hits. And last night he goes 0 for 4.
The ultimate jinx.
I mean, I think that's the only bright spot, or at least, from a Gamecock standpoint, is watching him because, he's in a contract year. And these guys usually in a contract year go out there and they perform. I'm not saying that he's not capable of doing it year in and year out, but for whatever reason, they know that everything's on the line. I have to be able to deliver. And now more than ever, because we have a 60-game schedule, if that actually does play out and we were able to finish it. I think the changes to the manager position with Cora not being there, Alex Cora not being there, I think is kind of took the fire away from the team because they just come out flat. They just come out flat. That first game of the season, they were ready to go, and you couldn't get really too excited because it was the Orioles. And then the next 2 days, what happens? The O's are able to beat you. Baltimore, one of the worst teams we've seen in the last 3 years. These last 3 year stretch. So. I don't know what the Red Sox have to do. And I know some people are like, oh, it's still early and this and that. I'm comparing the Major League Baseball schedule to kind of like an NBA schedule. Right now, I know it's 22 games shorter, but it's just like, yes, you have time to be able to figure things out and be able to go to postseason. But at the same time, too, it's not like a 162-game schedule. On top of that, I saw this play out with the 162-game schedule last season when the Red Sox had an awful start. And everyone said the same thing. Oh, it's only the first couple games. Oh, it's only the first week. Oh, it's only the first month. And the next thing you know, we're getting into mid-July, and they're in last place, and they're not going to be able to get out of the basement. So I don't know what's going on with the Red Sox. The Braves, I have no clue what's going on with them. Dansby is the only thing that's making me smile when I watch them. Yeah. But even that, I mean, it's –
the pitching's been terrible, man. It's been awful.
And I think that's one of the things, if you look across the league, because the White Sox are going through similar issues too, and being able to talk with Grayson Griner a couple months ago, he said that was one of the most difficult. He thinks that was going to be the most difficult thing when play got picked up again, is the pitchers, because it's just not the same. And that's the reason why, and you know this is a former pitcher, that's the reason why pitchers and catchers report earlier than anyone else, because it just takes them a little bit more time. So, you know, that's the only thing I'm trying to tell myself to make me feel good, and not just them. But, you know, you see sometimes the Braves situation with their pitching and, you know, seeing some of the other teams that are struggling from a pitching standpoint. Let's just see how things go a week from now, 2 weeks from now, once pitchers are able to get more comfortable, just because their rhythm right now is just – it's not going to be the same like in years past. So I just want to see how things play out. But obviously some teams have been able to figure it out too. So, you know, someone would say, why has this team been able to figure it out, but they haven't? Not every pitcher's the same way. So we'll see, but that's the only thing making me comfortable. It's like, all right, give it 2 more weeks. Maybe the pitchers will be able to figure it out. But at the same time, too, I mean, I don't know any of these guys. I mean, I know we're both D2 guys, so we have love for guys that you don't really know too much about. And some of these guys probably play in the SEC, but it's a mess, man. It's a mess.
Yeah, for sure. Mike, before I get you out of here, I feel like it would be foolish of me, I think people would get upset at me if I didn't ask you about how you think college football will look this year, because, again, you're in sports media. You like I said, you're the connector, like you said, between the fans and the team, and so you're going to have a better feel on it. I'm sure you've had conversations with people behind the scenes. Listen, none of us really know, and we're all sort of anxiously awaiting, but we've seen different things that are positive. We've seen some things that are negative. I mean, listen, if fall camp was to start on time, it'd be starting within the next week. I mean, literally within the next week. If you're going to play games, you're going to have to start practice here soon. But just give people your overall take. I mean, what do you think, college football may look like this fall? Do you think conference only? Do you think a delayed start to the season? I mean, what's just if you had to give like a prediction, I guess, what's your overall take on it?
Well, I remember I put a tweet out a couple months ago, and I said, from talking to 2 coaches, one was an FCS coach and one was a Big Ten coach. And what they both said to me was very similar, which was, if the SEC does not have a football season this year, we're not confident that we're going to have one. Now think about that. FCS, we know what's going on with a lot of those conferences. A lot of the schools have either scratched the season or they're pushing things back to the spring. Mm-hmm. But a Big Ten coach said that. A Big Ten. I'm not saying, as a head coach, but this is a guy that's been around college football, especially Power 5, for the last couple of years. He knows what's going on. He wouldn't just say something like that. So when I hear that, I'm looking directly at the SEC, and I think a lot of people are looking at the SEC. So I think right now, because I know the Board of Governors is meeting for the ACC today, and they're expected to meet again on August 5th. I truly believe right now this is like an eye-staring contest between the ACC and SEC. No one wants to be the one to pull the plug first. And I think, unfortunately, with just the way these numbers are going, and then you have to look at what's going on in other sports, not just with college football, but pro football, seeing what's going on with Major League Baseball. That has to scare some commissioners. And I think the other thing, too, that people need to realize, the difference with college, with pros, is that you got to deal with mama. You got to deal with mama. Yeah. Mama's going to be at home, and if mama's worried about her little Johnny playing, and they're making all these phone calls left and right, the parents, you just don't want to be the school that has a tragic situation happen, regardless of how you feel about this pandemic. The bottom line is, the way they're handling this is not going to change. So whether you think this is, too much or this and that, bottom line is it's just not going to change the way they're feeling right now. Until these numbers go down, it's just not going to make them feel better. No one wants to, because all it takes is just that one school where there's a tragic incident that happens, and it's going to fall in the hands of that college. That school is going to be looked at differently. And on top of that, the NCAA is going to be looked at differently. So I think from a liability standpoint, especially in a world that we live in today where everyone just wants to go sue Happy and sue this person and that person, you have to be careful. You have to be careful. It scares me, like I said, Major League Baseball, NFL, and now obviously with college sports, even high school sports, they're not going the bubble route, because I don't know how you could really do that. Baseball, I know they were talking about that, but the Players Union shut that down quickly. I'm very nervous that we weren't even able to get through a week with Major League Baseball and all this stuff happened. Football, like we talked about before the show, you have double the size. You have double the size with NFL players. Then from a college standpoint, there's even more. So the more and more we get closer to whatever the start date of the season is going to be, or as we get closer to September, I just have not been feeling as confident. And I definitely think this past week for Major League Baseball made me feel less confident. But I think more than anything, kind of just to to kind of sum this part up, the SEC, the NCAA, these Big Five schools, they're going to do whatever they can, I feel like, to be able to play football this fall. Football. I'm not saying other fall sports, football, because football is the breadwinner. Football is what's going to be able to help pay for some of these other sports. I haven't had conversations with people about this. This is just my personal feelings about this. If there are no fans allowed to be able to be in the stadium for any of these places, I feel like you're going to see more conferences and even the NCAA say, you know what, maybe it's not worth it, because we can talk about it. We can pretend that health is the number one priority, and it should be. And I truly believe a majority of these people that are making these decisions feel that way. But at the same time, too, money makes the world go round, and money's in the back of their head, too. And I think sometimes some of these decisions are going to be made because of a financial standpoint, too. So I don't know. What is that push going to be? Is it going to be, okay, you know what, we got to make sure that everything's going to be good, or are we going to try to say, hey, financially, let's just wait. Maybe we can get fans in the spring. We could actually make some money that way. So TV deals will help, but it's just not going to be the same if you don't have people in the stands.
You're a former college football player, Mike. I'll ask you. I mean, again, you say it's D2, but still, you played college football. You know, now, like you said, Mama's at home worried about little Mikey, right? I mean, what would you?
Parents out there that think that way. I'm not saying every parent, but
right.
I mean, think about
for sure.
what we see with recruiting. Think about what we see with recruiting.
Yeah.
You don't think there's going to be at least one mother out there that says, you know, my Johnny out there, I don't want him out there, coach. You know?
Well, I guess my question was going to be, if this, let's just say hypothetically, this either you were still playing or this would happen when you played. I mean, would you play? I mean, what would your thought be as a player in this situation?
My thought process would be this, and I'm not saying this as a shot against my college coach, because I had two different college coaches, and I would want to believe, and I truly do believe, that they would go about things the right way. But I just think as a player, and I've had conversations with a former Clemson player about this. I've had conversations with former USC players about this. I think as players, because how we're programmed, we have this fear in the back of our head that if we don't do something, that it could come back and haunt us from a depth standpoint. In terms of if you're a starting player and you sit this one out, that come time next year, you're not going to have your starting spot for two reasons. One, you feel like the coach might hold that against you. And number two, you could get Wally pipped. You could have a situation where someone filled in if there is a season and you decide to sit out. And if that guy's playing well enough to be able to be the starter, why would the coach go back to you regardless of how good you are? I mean, there might be some cases where a guy's like, all right, you know what, he's super talented. We're not gonna use him. We're gonna have to use him in some capacity. But I feel like a lot of guys are nervous, and I think that goes back to some of these summer workouts. Some of these players, they feel like if they don't go, that they'll get chastised by their coaches. And I'm not saying necessarily the head coach. I'm not saying that for any in particular school, but I'm just telling you just the mentality of a college football player. And speaking with some of these players, is like, there's no way. You know, when they talked about, okay, you know, you'll be able to sit out a year, the SEC, you'll be able to sit out a year and they'll honor your scholarship. I had a conversation with one of the players and he started laughing. He's like, yeah. He's like, I'm sure that would go over real well. Because players they have that fear. And especially when you talk about players who, Marcus Lattimore told me this 2 years ago, 99% of them that get recruited, they truly believe they're going to go play in the NFL one day. They truly believe, the guys that are on scholarship, they truly believe they're going to go play in the NFL one day. So when you take that into consideration too, it's not like these NFL guys that already have their money. You know, they already have their money. They know what's going to be there for them when they come back. These college kids, especially the fringe guys, the guys that need to be able to play, just like these high school players that need to be able to play to earn a scholarship for this year or next year, they are nervous. They're nervous because they feel like if they don't go out there and play this year and they decide to sit a year out, there might not be a starting spot for them next year. I'm not saying every player is thinking that, but I'm telling you there's probably more players thinking that way than not. And if they don't come back, what could that mean for my draft stock in the future? So it's one of those things that, like we talked about before with a lot of other things, there's no blueprint how to handle a situation like this. But I can tell you there's so much fear right now from a player's standpoint, because it's just like, what do I do? And I feel like people, as much as they want to be able to feel safe and protected, they want to feel safe and protected from a financial situation if that means it could hurt them from a playing standpoint for the next year.
Yeah, bottom line, Mike, I really do feel for the kids. And again, it started with the baseball season, but I just think of, you know, as a senior in high school, I was a guy, late bloomer. I really used my senior year to get recruited. That's a lot how I feel like a lot of D2 guys are, because recruiting starts so early. And, some guys just are late bloomers. They don't come on till their junior or even their senior years of high school, no matter the sport. So, I think to myself, if I had lost my senior season, my senior year, I don't think there would have been a scholarship for me. And that's, so I really feel for these kids, like you're saying, that are either getting their seasons completely taken away or that are making these tough decisions. Like you said, the fear is a real thing. Because like I said, I think to my situation when I played, like I said, if I'd have lost that senior year, I don't think there would have been an athletic scholarship there waiting for me. I used that senior year to ball out and showcase my skills and maybe show some people some things they had never seen before. So, and I'm sure you can relate to that as well. Just losing that opportunity is brutal. I'm going to get you out of here, Mike. The last question. You've covered a lot of great events. You've met a lot of great people. You literally Super Bowls. You've done college football national championships, March Madness. You've eaten hot dogs with Joey Chestnut. You've done it all. If there's one moment, whether it be in Mississippi, Columbia, some event, some person, what's the one moment, one event, one person, one thing that sticks out from your career in sports media?
It's so tough to just narrow it down to one. I think my favorite thing to cover was the World Series, and I didn't get to I don't think I truly appreciated it when I was there, just because when you're covering something, whether it's the World Series, whether it's a high school football game or whatever, it could be a Little League game, at some point you're just programmed not to really see things as this is really big, or this is only a high school thing. And you kind of treat everything the same way, or at least that's the way I view things. So when I was at and granted, I've always been to Fenway Park. I grew up going there, and especially it being just 4 months after my grandfather passing away, that was very special to be able to cover that World Series. There's no question about it, and how that all came about. Maybe that's the reason why I made it so special. I did everything I could to be able to cover that World Series. I went to my GM on Friday because someone shot a tweet saying, "Oh, you guys should go cover it." And I thought, "There's no way in hell. There's no way they're going to send me up." This is like on a Friday. So I go to my GM, and my general manager is like, "Okay, Jackie Bradley did," because I made a joke. I said, "Well, Jackie Bradley was the LCS MVP. Maybe we should cover it." And he said, "Well, go ask the news director." I'm like, "Really? We have a new news director." I'm thinking, there's no way. And he's like, "I think that's great because the World Series was on Fox." So I'm emailing, calling, texting. I'm doing whatever I can because I find out online that the deadline for World Series credentials was like a month prior, 2 months prior. I think actually at the beginning of September. So it felt like, 2 months, but it was a month prior. And I'm like, there's just no way. What am I going to do? So I'm on the phone. It's called MLB Press Box. I'm on the phone. I'm on hold for about an hour. Come to find out, MLB Press Box has nothing to do with credentials. It's something to be able to watch games. I'm talking to some guy in Saudi Arabia. I left him my number. I'm calling people. I don't know what happened, but I end up getting an email at like 9 o'clock on Saturday night saying, "You're good to go." And my station's like, "That's fantastic. If you want to go," because media day for the World Series was on Monday. They said, "You want to go? We're not going to get a flight for you. You're going to have to drive up." So I drove up by myself with the station car. I had a place to stay. Drove up 15 hours from South Carolina up to Boston. Got up there just in time to be able, maybe, 8 in the morning on Monday morning. Slept for about 2 hours. Got to Fenway. Did media day. Did the World Series. We're getting out around 2:30 at night. Go home. Do radio hits at 6. Do this and that. You have to do TV hits. Back at the ballpark for the World Series at noon. It was an absolute zoo. So, I really just appreciated something like that, but you just don't really think about it in the moment. Like, man, this is really special. So, especially being a kid from Boston, Fenway Park, it's just always special. So, I know that was a long-winded answer.
I love it. Love it.
That I just haven't shared before. So, yeah, that's how we were able to cover it. And, you could not have wrote it any better. The fact that for the first time in Major League Baseball history that you have a guy that wins the ALCS and World Series MVP from the same college. It had never happened before. And because of that, Jackie Bradley came to Village Idiot to do an interview a couple weeks later. I told him, I said, "Jackie, look, win or lose, I know you're coming back for a football game. Just give me one interview." He's like, "I got you." So I ran into him a couple weeks later after he won, and he's like, "You want to do the interview tonight at Village?" And he was down at Village Idiot eating pizza, signing autographs, did an interview for 2 hours. But that just, speaks to the type of person Jackie Bradley is as well.
Good stuff, Mike. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time. You're definitely a guy I value as a friend and someone I really admire and look up to in this industry and sports media and everything. So appreciate you taking the time. And I know other people feel the same way as well. The job you do is phenomenal, covering both sides, like I said, from an unbiased perspective and just being an entertaining, positive force influence, if you will, in the sports media world, especially in the local Columbia market. And definitely no matter where you go, I think you'll be a force for sure. Let people know where they can find you, just in case they're listening and they're not familiar with you, where they can find you on social media, when they can hear your segments. Obviously, again, you're the sports anchor reporter for Watch Fox, just when they can watch you, just give people a little bit of information about how to consume your content, if you will.
Yeah, so on Twitter, it's Mike_UVA, and then we're on air, for the Sports Zone at 11 o'clock, Monday through Fridays. 30 minutes of sports. You won't find that anywhere else from a local standpoint in town. And then on Saturdays, I'm also anchoring at 10 o'clock on Saturday and Sunday. And like I said, you will not find more sports anywhere else in the Midlands, and I'm very fortunate that we have that platform over at Watch Fox.
Absolutely. Well, Mike, really appreciate you taking the time. Let's definitely do it again soon, my friend, for sure.
I appreciate it, Chris. Thank you.
Absolutely. He's Mike Uva. I'm Chris Phillips. We appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll catch you next time on the episode of the Spurs Up Show.